Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to you all in this interaction session. Let me introduce myself. I'm Barsha Pradhan, and I'm presently working with the UNICEF Evaluation Office as an evaluation specialist. We in the UNICEF Evaluation Office are very glad to be hosting this event as a part of Youth in Evaluation Week. Through this session, we would like to support in amplifying the dialogue on intergenerational solidarity for transformative evaluation. As we all know, we approach the SDG achievement target by 2030, and it has been even more important for us to engage young people in all aspects of our work, including evaluations. The experiences that we have with young people here that they will share in this interaction session will be very helpful to understand how we can enhance the meaningful engagement of youth in evaluations and not just a regular engagement. During the event, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A, and we will address them at the end of this session in the Q&A session. My colleague Kyra, who is a young and emerging evaluator herself and works with the UNICEF Evaluation Office, will facilitate the chat and moderate the Q&A session. The session will be recorded and made available on the social media later on. I'm happy to introduce the speakers for this interaction session. Let me begin by presenting two of the UNICEF staff members who have played an instrumental role in the global evaluation of UNICEF gender policy and the gender action plan. After asking them a few questions, I will move to our young speakers from the Youth Advisory Group. This Youth Advisory Group was formed specifically for the global evaluation of the UNICEF gender policy and gender action plan. So from UNICEF, we have Erica Matalone, Senior Evaluation Specialist with UNICEF office in the headquarters. She is managing this evaluation. We also have from UNICEF, Satvika Chalasani, who is a Senior Gender Specialist with UNICEF Gender Team in the headquarters. She is the focal point from the gender team on this evaluation. Let me begin by asking Satvika. This evaluation intends to assess the gender policy and gender action plan for UNICEF. It is a global evaluation and focuses on the policies. So maybe you could explain a little bit about the UNICEF policy and the action plan, but also how UNICEF works in and around gender. Over to you, Satvika.
Thank you, Varsha. Welcome everyone to this webinar, and a special thanks to all of our young colleagues who have agreed to be a part of this evaluation that we're doing of UNICEF's Gender Action Plan and gender policy, and all of the ideas and expertise and innovation that you're bringing to our discussions. I'm here to just talk a little bit about what is actually being evaluated. We have two important frameworks that guide UNICEF's work on gender. One is the UNICEF Gender Policy, and the other is the UNICEF Gender Action Plan. I'll just give you a quick overview of these frameworks so that you can be better informed for the rest of the webinar going through. Next slide, please. As you know, a policy in general is kind of a high-level document. It doesn't get into the nitty-gritty. It kind of tells you what you want to achieve at a strategic level. So it lays out a vision in some ways. So in UNICEF's gender policy, it's really about having more gender transformative programming and results, and to see the empowerment of women and girls. It makes sure that gender equality is a core part of UNICEF's mandate, that it's not just gender is not just the business of, this agency or that agency or this organization or this particular ministry. It's really everybody's business, and it is UNICEF's business as well. It names gender equality as an accelerator to achieve many of the SDGs, particularly for children. It puts a spotlight on adolescent girls' rights and leadership, in particular among all the demographics that do comprise children and girls and women. It emphasizes the importance of partnerships with women and girls organizations. It talks about the context in which we work across the humanitarian development continuum, that we want to be working on gender. And it's really about our accountability internally to walk the talk and to do as we say. Next slide, please. The second document that's more nitty-gritty is the Gender Action Plan, and it has a results framework. And basically, don't be distracted by all the boxes and the heavily animated slide, but it's about the various goal areas of UNICEF. We have 5 goal areas: health, education, child protection, water sanitation, and social protection. And across these goal areas, the Gender Action Plan defines specific results that we want to achieve for women and girls, along with men and boys. So, for example, I won't walk through all of it, but in the child protection element, you can see that it's about addressing violence against girls, boys, and women. But then if you zoom in to adolescent girls as a priority population, below that in purple, it's about eliminating child marriage and early unions. So it defines priorities both across the life course and specific targeted priorities for adolescent girls. Next slide, please. We have a third framework. I know I said 2 and I'm cheating and I'm bringing another one, but so much of what we do as UNICEF and in this current world is related to humanitarian action. It's really almost 2/3 of UNICEF's business really goes into countries experiencing humanitarian crisis, whether it's natural disaster or conflict. And there, our gender priorities are embedded in the core commitments for children, and they're focused on gender-based violence, on engaging women, girls, and youth, and really having gender-responsive programming through gender analysis and data disaggregation. Next slide, please. I just want to demystify a little bit if there are people on this call that don't know what gender transformative programming can mean. Obviously, it's a mouthful and it needs demystification. You may have heard of the gender continuum. It goes basically from gender discriminatory programming all the way up to gender transformative programming, where you're really addressing the root causes of gender inequality, and you're doing, deep analysis of what are the power dynamics, and you're rectifying inequalities in power, access to resources, access to opportunities, voice, and choice. So that's really the ideal, and that's where we're trying to get to. I'm happy to report, I think, overall as UNICEF, we're much more on the right side of the spectrum than we are on the left, but the evaluation will tell us the answers to that. Next slide. We also measure how we're doing this. We need the organization to walk the talk, as I said, and it really looks at the how and the who, and the how includes gender analysis, monitoring and evaluation, financial investments, partnerships, and interagency and with civil society organizations. And the who, it's really going all the way from our leadership to dedicated gender expertise, having a gender unit that I'm part of, and then also achieving gender parity between males and females everywhere we work. Next slide, please. I just want to leave you with this last slide to say that, we do try to be results focused in our work, and hopefully that makes it more evaluable when you're more results focused rather than process focused. And some of these results really are visible, very visible results we see in the domain of child marriage, for example, where you see in Kenya over time, child marriage has fallen quite dramatically in the latest DHS available, showing that it's actually reduced by a good 10 percentage points, marriage under the age of 18. Not all of this has to do with UNICEF, obviously. There's something that's been happening in Kenya in terms of investments in girls, in their education, in families, social protection, and a modernity that has changed outcomes. We're part of that. We hope to be catalysts of that. And I think with the right kind of investments and the right people and the right partnerships, we can actually make that difference. But all of this is, of course, subject to, the evaluation telling us what exactly it is, what's the secret sauce to actually achieving change for girls and women, for boys and men everywhere. That's it from me. Back to you, Varsha.
Thank you so much, Satvika. As we can see, gender programming is paramount. And this is also why we have this evaluation, as mentioned by Satvika. It helps us in finding what the secret sauce is. Maybe Erica can tell us a little bit more about the secret sauce that we have here in terms of the evaluation that we are doing here and the involvement of youth in the evaluation process. Over to you, Erica.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barsha, and welcome colleagues to this webinar. So nice to see you here today. So let me tell you more about the secret sauce of youth engagement and why youth engagement in evaluation is so critical. First, as you can imagine, at UNICEF, we recognize the power of youth because when they contribute to social change, they build better futures for themselves and the communities within which they thrive in. But this kind of progress is only possible when they're given the agency to do so, the platform for dialogue, and of course, intergenerational partnership. So promoting civil engagement is a top priority for UNICEF. We aim to empower the youth and enable them to become drivers of change through a variety of actions, including, of course, evaluation of our policies and programs. So in line with the Convention of the Rights of the Child, UNICEF strongly believes in the right for adolescents to participate in and influence decision-making processes. And I would say we cannot just stop at mere participation in interviews, focus group. We see the benefits of youth participation in monitoring and evaluation going beyond that. And this is why we strongly advocated for a youth advisory group to help bring fresh insight into our evaluative processes at UNICEF in the evaluation office. So if you ask me, I would say the relationship between the Youth Advisory Group and the UNICEF Evaluation Office is a symbiotic one. On one hand, their participation helps us gain more authentic and credible data for enhanced decision-making. And at the same time, their involvement allows for the development of their evaluative thinking skills, fostering empowerment and providing them with a platform to energize collective change together as a group. UNICEF also created a guidance note to determine how youth engagement can best add value and how adolescents can be meaningfully, safely, and ethically involved in monitoring and evaluation. And I believe my colleagues here will share the link to the guidance in the chat, so you can have a look at that. Next, when it comes to the creation of a youth advisory group, in terms of the process, we put forward a call for expressions of interest from young individuals of diverse backgrounds who are passionate about challenging gender inequalities, as Sadvika said, and promoting positive and equitable behaviors in the hopes that they would play a crucial role in the evaluation of the UNICEF gender policy and the implementation of gender action plans in UNICEF. We were overwhelmed by the number of applications. Barsha and I review over 500 applications, of which a few were shortlisted for a conversation about the valuable insights and perspective they will bring to the group. And of course, while their participation is voluntary, this is an opportunity for them, and we will hear from them in a moment, to gain hands-on experience in the evaluation of global policies and programs, get access to trainings, and widens their network with professionals and fellow youth advocates in the field and here at UNICEF globally. So in a nutshell, what is the role of a youth advisory group? First, engage in the evaluation process, providing insights and perspectives to ensure inclusivity and youth friendliness of our evaluation. Then sense check key evaluation questions and the overall evaluation approach to ensure it resonates within the youth demographic. And finally, support the dissemination and sharing of results in an adolescent-friendly way when we will come to the end of this evaluation process. So thank you so much. And Barsha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Erica. It is definitely a very important initiative that UNICEF Evaluation Office has embarked on to ensure that the youth participation is meaningful for this evaluation. Well, let's see what the young members have to say about their experiences of being the members of this youth advisory group. So here with us, we have 5 members. Let me introduce them. First, we have Rondell Trim, who is the Executive Director of Equals Barbados. It is one of the primary LGBTQ+ organizations in Barbados. Rondell is a graduate of the University of West Indies, where he was conferred his bachelor's degree in economics. Second, we have Hani Ruhikamar. She is the founder and executive director of the Canadian Advisory of Women Immigrants and a Master of Science student in epidemiology at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Third, we have Anna, who is a graduate in the International Affairs from Sciences Po University. She has previous experience conducting research, monitoring, and evaluation of different types of programming from international agencies in the Middle East and North African region. We also have Alaya Logan, co-founder of Cultivate Global Education. She was featured in this year's Forbes 30 Under 30 education list. She is a youth consultant at UNICEF on the Gender Specialist team, where she supports UNICEF's Global Girl Leader Advisory Group. And finally, we have Wizdain El Faizi. She is a political science graduate from Mohammed VI Polytechnic University in Morocco. She is now working in the Adolescent Development and Participation Program as an United Nations National Youth Volunteer at UNICEF Morocco. So to this group of young people, my first question would be, what is your motivation behind joining the Youth Advisory Group, specifically for this UNICEF evaluation on gender policy and action plan? And how have you contributed to the group so far? Rondell, would you like to take this question?
Yes, definitely. First, I'd like to begin by saying it's been fantastic being a member of the Youth Advisory Group. And it has been all that I would have imagined before joining. I would have joined because being the executive director of Equals Barbados, when oftentimes we look at gender, things that are left out of the conversation are intersex and transgender youth. And they particularly face special challenges navigating life due to the fact that in many countries, the LGBTQ community isn't completely tolerated in these parts of the world. So being a member of the Youth Advisory Group and understanding that the evaluation of the UNICEF Gender Action Policy and Global Action Plan is still ongoing, I've definitely been able to advocate on behalf of these individuals and influence the methodology and the research questions in regards to ensuring that transgender and intersex young people are involved in the conversation and are involved in the policy and the gender action plan as well. It's also important to know that I am a male, and I understand that my male peers aren't exactly quite educated on the topic of gender advocacy. So one of my other motivations is ensuring that I grow as an individual that it has been a learning experience, and I grow as a gender champion so that I could impart some of this knowledge on my male peers so that we could get more males involved in ensuring that there is gender equity and gender equality across the world.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. It seems like you definitely had a very exemplary motivation, but also contribution to the evaluation seems to be quite real, for sure. So based on the experiences that you all have in this evaluation, could you share what would you suggest to the evaluation managers to have similar kind of engagement of young people in evaluations? How do you think they can strive to do this better? Would Alia want to take this question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Barsha, for such a warm introduction. And I just want to take a moment to echo the strong sentiments that Rondell and Erica just shared before about the importance of engaging young people in various methods and ways through UNICEF. And as a member of the Youth Advisory Group and the Global Girl Leaders Advisory Group, I think I've seen firsthand the importance of incorporating young people and the power that youth mobilization has. So my biggest suggestion is to engage with all different types of young people from around the world. I think diversity is something that unites us and brings value to our environment. I think it's very important to have diversity with young people whose first language isn't English or who may not speak English, because I think that is something that is crucial when advocacy and doing advocacy for various topics, and having young people from different regions around the world is also very crucial. It is also very important to have young people, especially young girls and women who may have been impacted by various issues that UNICEF advocates for, whether it's related to child marriage or adolescent pregnancies or even gender-based violence. It is crucial to have the people who are most impacted by these said issues having a seat at the table and the perspectives heard, especially since they may be most impacted. And I think one of the most impactful ways that we can do better is ensuring that youth engagement and thoughts are taken seriously. So when a young person is at the table and they give suggestions, figure out how to take those opinions and make it into tangible action. And I think that's two things that would be my biggest recommendations to different evaluation managers. So thank you so much, Barsha, and I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Alia. Wisdane, do you want to add or provide any additional suggestions to the evaluation managers on youth engagement?
Thank you, Barsha, for giving me the floor today. Really, thank you. Actually, what I want to add doesn't actually go at all against what Alia said and mentioned earlier. So what I would like to share is my concern about how actually can we reach most of the young people. Alia mentioned the difference of languages, but I'd like to add maybe a difference in socioeconomic backgrounds, ages, genders, and even the coverage of the geographical areas. And I think UNICEF and some other organizations are really aware of that. And your report actually can be a really good, and can be even more a better platform to reach and engage a bigger number of young people. My second advice would be actually maybe building the capacity of young people, even though they're from different socioeconomic backgrounds. As we know, actually, I feel that I'm lucky because I went to university and it was easy for me to find the opportunity to do an internship, for example, within UNICEF. But we work with vulnerable youth and children categories, and it would be great actually if we build the capacity about different topics, and then we are going to make sure that they will be actually meaningfully engage and participate in evaluations and any other decision-making processes. And my third advice would be really focusing on the career development. As I said, I feel lucky because I could join the UNICEF as a UNV, as a National Youth United Nations volunteer. But for example, in some countries, there are no junior professional officer positions, just like in Morocco. So maybe if we don't have this possibility, we can maybe add more positions in volunteering as youth, and more specifically within the evaluation sections, so that these young people actually learn and really participate meaningfully. I'd like to mention that I feel that as it is the case for our office, we are working with a group of young people called اللجنة التشاركية للشباب واليافعين, le comité participatif des adolescents et des jeunes, or the participatory committee of young people. It's a small group of young people aged between 14 and 20, and from really different socioeconomic backgrounds. Some of them are in child protection centers, some of them are in second chance schools, and some of them are needs. And we actually train them on different topics, and we show them and we tell them about the programs we are working on, and we really include them and engage them in our evaluations and our program design and all the decision-making process. And last, I'd like to mention the importance of promoting intergenerational dialogues, such as the Summit of Future, for example, happening really soon. I think it's a really important opportunity, as well as the high-level meetings, for example, to try to fill that gap created by between generations because of the very fast evolution that is happening from between each generation and the next one. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Frizin. I think both you and Alia have really touched on really important points in terms of how important it is to have young people from diverse backgrounds to get engaged in evaluations, but also building their capacities to do that. Maybe shifting a little bit to the opportunities for the young people, as you mentioned about building capacities and providing opportunities to the young people. Would this group have any suggestions for the young people like you who would be interested in joining similar kind of groups? How do you envision the role of youth should look like for youth engagement in evaluations? Anna, do you want to take this question?
Sure. Thanks, Marsha and UNICEF's Evaluation Office for the opportunity. As you were saying, well, it's not easy to find opportunities like this one to join, for example, youth advisory groups. Therefore, I would suggest, based on my own experience, 3 key points that can help other young people take a chance with these opportunities. The first one is doing some research to identify organizations or youth networks that would align with your values or your interests. And once you have sort of identified them and mapped them, the most important thing for me, I think, is to stay up to date with their news, with their updates through, most of the time, social media. And for instance, this is how I heard about UNICEF's Youth Advisory Group and the call for engagement. It was through a post on LinkedIn that was shared by UNICEF's Evaluation Office, and then also reposted by other UNICEF colleagues or by people that I was following, because they usually posted content that was aligned to my interest in evaluation, for example, and also in gender. So sometimes it's a bit out of the blue. You cannot know when these things are going to appear, but it's always important, you know, to have those organizations identify and to stay up to date until some opportunity comes up. And then in parallel, I would also suggest, for example, attending events, webinars, or workshop from any topic that you like and that you would like to work in the future, and to engage in those forums as much as possible. And for example, if you cannot do it as a panelist, well, attend and be a participant and try to learn from the discussions that are taking place. Also use the opportunity to connect with other individuals and to expand your network and also your knowledge on what's going on in this field. And last but not least, connected to this conversation we were having on capacity building that Wejdan mentioned. In the meantime, it's also important that you take the time to develop relevant skills that will be useful at the time when you're applying to join these groups. For instance, getting experience in project management, in evaluation, or in gender was really useful for me to join this group, but different sorts of skills will be applicable for other types of youth opportunities. And this depends on really what you want to integrate in the future. But it's a key point because these applications, as you were mentioning, are very competitive. Lots of people apply. So this is something that can make the difference for you being selected. And in a couple of words, it's always be proactive. That's the summary of the key pointers. And also just in some seconds, the role that I envision for youth in these groups is an active role of engagement throughout the process. That's it, from the beginning of strategic planning through implementation, monitoring. Here, for example, we're talking about evaluation and how this will circle back to the beginning of the policy-making process. So I do think that our voices are meaningful and valuable in all these steps, and therefore that we should have a seat at the table and we should be given the opportunity to engage substantially in these groups, not just as attendees, but as actors and agents of change.
Yes, indeed. I think you really touch upon a very important point of being proactive and having those networks in terms of identifying those opportunities and also being successful in getting those opportunities. Hani, would you have any additional suggestions for young people like you?
Thank you, Barsha, and thank you, Anna. I especially echo what you said about staying up to date on webinars, workshops, and youth organizations of your interest. I would also like to mention that it has been an honor and privilege to be a part of this group and learn from my peers and also mentors like Erica and Barsha. In terms of this question, if you are really interested in becoming involved in similar groups like this one, I would say that it's important that you become involved in local clubs, organizations that focus on gender policy, research, or programming. If that is the area that you're interested in, this can definitely pave your way to national and global opportunities while connecting you to other like-minded young people interested in similar fields. You'll also gain valuable experience and insights, and that will help you build a network that can further support your professional journey. Second, I would say is learning how to sell yourself and your experiences is really crucial, as it can be really daunting for young people to engage in larger or global projects, especially due to the lack of representations at times. Your unique perspective and expertise are valuable, and something that can really help with this challenge is having role models that look like you that also belong at the same table or in the same fields that you're interested in. By taking these steps, you will not only advance your career, but also contribute meaningfully to the fields that you're interested in. For example, for me, this was gender policy. And for the last part of the question, the role of youth in future groups, I believe it's important to ensure that youth are not tokenized in groups or projects. Oftentimes, young people are not given the space to lead and be heard throughout the process. And unless they are given that opportunity to enrich their experiences, lead certain aspects of the project, or are being empowered through other opportunities, then such projects are not usually youth-led unless they are given these opportunities. For example, as a part of this youth advisory group, I had the opportunity to chair a meeting, and that empowered me to develop facilitation skills, and it also exposed me to develop global evaluation skills in the field of gender policy. In addition, we also have many training opportunities within and outside of UNICEF that are often shared with us as a part of this group, which further enriches our knowledge and helps us get access to other evaluation skills and exposure to different fields as well. In terms of my other experiences, I've been part of other groups and organizations where we have conducted focus group discussions to evaluate different topics related to the well-being of young people. And these projects were often youth-led, and I had the opportunity to actually chair these focus group discussion and participate in the data collection, which is not often an opportunity that's given to young people in youth spaces or in different global projects as well. So this really allowed me to develop my research skills, and that further contributed to my selection to be a part of this youth advisory group, and I'm really grateful for that. And to conclude, I would just like to say that spaces for young people should truly be youth-led and have an atmosphere that allows them to enrich their skill set and express themselves freely. Thank you, and I will pass it on to Barsha.
Thank you, Hani. I think in what just you said, you have so many really good tips that's there for young people that if they are really interested in being a part of similar kind of groups, they could actually take this up. So thank you both, Anna and Hani, for this. It just shows how important it is to build your own capacities and being proactive, finding those opportunities and getting them. So as we move ahead, I'm sure there must be a lot of questions on the chat, on the Q&A, and I'll ask Kyra to moderate the Q&A session. Over to you, Kyra.
Thank you so much, Barsha. And as we're just monitoring this chat, we see that there are a lot of insightful questions that the audience has posed. And while we may not be able to get through all of them in time, we really hope to touch on some that we find most relevant and find most engaging in this discussion. So we'll start with one of the first questions posed. So this may be a question more towards the evaluation specialists in our team, but of course, at any point in time, please feel free to jump in if any other panelists have something to contribute. But someone asks that despite the on-job training, how do you succeed to address your evaluation capacity building needs? And can this raise, equity issues, notably for the younger people who, let's say, don't have access to internet? How do we sort of address these issues of capacity building? And maybe Satvika or Erica could take this one up to get the conversation started.
Maybe I can take this one, Kyra, just to say that in terms of capacity building, we provided opportunities for training to the members of the Youth Advisory Group, both in gender as well as in evaluation, and also organize a focus conversation with specialists at UNICEF to unpack some of the issues. When it comes to access to data, we have tried to facilitate that by providing a data bundle to the members of the Youth Advisory Group so that for the duration of this engagement, they can more easily access the internet and participate to meetings or follow trainings, get access to resources online.
Thank you. Satvika, would you have anything else to add?
I just want to say it won't be specific to evaluation, but as you know, within program more generally, we do have some opportunities for engagement and capacity building. There's some at the global level. As you know, there's the Global Girl Leaders Advisory Group, which itself will be eventually entering a new cohort, at which time there will be some opportunities. But at the country office level, several of our country offices, although not all, have opportunities for young people to come together and to learn about the UN system, how we do our work, what we're trying to achieve, and then also for our mutual exchange and benefit for us to hear, how best and how better we can engage them. So I would say at the country office level might be a good point to start, and keep an eye out on information circulating in local youth networks on what UNICEF country offices are offering.
Yeah, that is honestly such a great segue into another question that someone had, which is, talking about this, could you pinpoint certain experiences with engaging with youth-led organizations and forums as part of this youth capacity building? I'm sure there must be, a plethora of examples with that, and it would be really helpful for the audience to know if you could pinpoint some of these experiences.
Sure, I can just mention that not all engagement has to look similar. I always like to remember that youth engagement at the community level, which many of you have experience with, where you're really talking to people with very modest, extremely modest amount of resources at their disposal, and young girls who are wonderful, tremendous advocates on issues that are very close to them. There's issues related to child marriage and adolescent pregnancy and violence, and you see them being very vocal on these issues. So I just want to highlight that there's a lot that happens through programs itself at the community level in terms of engagement, which is often invisible. It doesn't come to the fore. You are among the more visible advocates for young people. You are trying to amplify their voices. But I just want to remind us that there's a lot of programmatic opportunities for engagement that are embedded in the programs that are for, I would say, relatively more disadvantaged young people. But then you have more engagement at the national level. I know that there's always a girl summit coming up frequently. I believe there's another one in the works that's for Africa. Maybe the last one was in Niger, if I remember correctly. So there's, of course, those. In this upcoming year, it's Beijing. It's 30 years after Beijing, and it's the Beijing Plus 30. And so that's really going to be a moment also for UNICEF to engage more with girls. And then we have various things in the works that I can't talk about yet because they're not concrete enough yet. But there will be opportunities to engage in the lead up to Beijing and at the CSW, et cetera. So do stay tuned for that set of opportunities.
Thank you so much, Satvika. That was really insightful. We do have another question before I start, handing over the questions to some of our young panelists as well, because we do have quite a few for that as well. But this may be more directed to Erica, because you spoke a little bit about the Youth Advisory Group. And Taipei in the chat asks, was the Youth Advisory Group acting as an evaluation reference group, or were they a distinct consultation group for this evaluation? And if the two were separate, was there an opportunity for them to interact?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for sharing, Kara. So for this specific evaluation, we have two groups we have created. We have a more traditional evaluation reference group with UNICEF staff members and also specialists in the field of gender and evaluation that are advising us. And then we have the youth advisory group, and here today we have some members of the youth advisory group in the webinar. So far, we have had distinct meetings with these groups, also because, especially for the members of the youth advisory group, we wanted to provide them with a safe space to discuss issues and also make sure that the materials that are presented and discussed are also presented in an appropriate way with the right level also of engagement. As we move forward in this evaluation, which is still ongoing, we are planning to have moments where these groups will come together, especially in the final phase of evaluation, when we will discuss findings and recommendations on the way forward. And the voice of a very powerful members of the Youth Advisory Group we have will be crucial also in fine-tuning the evaluation findings and recommendation as we move forward.
Thank you. And I think as part of the same question, I'd like to direct this more towards our youth panelists. So if anyone would like to jump in, the same person asks that on, in terms of our group, did the youth advisory group feel heard? And were your views as youth taken into account to contribute to the development and the uptake of the recommendations that you issued? Maybe Aaliyah or Hani, would you guys like to jump in quickly and answer this?
I could jump in as well. And I feel like all of us have a similar experience in that there are often times when we go into groups that we aren't listened to, and there's some level of tokenism in that persons just want us to be there to say that young people are involved, but in actuality, our voices and our opinions aren't taken into account. So you might give your opinions, but at the end you realize that the finished product doesn't involve what you said or what your peers would have said throughout the consultations. However, I'm really happy to say that in the evaluation, when we spoke, and I could speak personally in regards to LGBTQI, intersex and transgender individuals, and I know it's a touchy topic for numerous persons based upon the fact of the discrimination and stigma that exists around the globe. Persons like Barsha definitely understood where it was coming from. And it was definitely said to have been included in the evaluation going forward, because there's a lot of intersectionality between persons impacted by things such as gender. Then if we go into conflict and different topics, that's a whole different issue. And the LGBTQ community often has to be included in the conversation. And that definitely was the case here, where when I spoke about it, they took it into account, and it definitely did influence the methodology and the research questions. So for me personally, this has been a sort of refreshing group in regards to being listened to as a young person. And it's definitely, once again, something that I encourage other persons to look into in regards to advisory groups, because the perspectives, the opinions, and the mentalities of young persons in these organizations and in these evaluations and in spaces in general is very important.
Thank you, Randall. And it's good to know that at least the YAG is definitely taking into consideration these perspectives, because that's exactly what this group is for. Would anyone else like to also jump in on this question? Okay, then maybe we can move on to another question. I think this was posed by Derehe in the chat. And this is a little wordy question, so I'll do my best to summarize it. But essentially, they say that currently the association of the Ethiopian Evaluation Association has about 523 monitoring and evaluation practitioners, with a couple of statistics. And their question essentially is, are there any capacity building training plan opportunities for these evaluators in the future to engage more and support these associations? So essentially, maybe is there some sort of ability to have this sort of cross communication and support for these smaller associations? Maybe Erica Southwick can jump in on this one.
Thank you, Kara. Probably yes. On this one, we can definitely get in touch with the person and put this person in contact with the colleagues in the UNICEF Ethiopia country office that, to my knowledge, is very active in promoting national evaluation capacity building so that there can be further conversations beyond this this webinar. In general, there are a number of free resources that are out there, developed also by UNICEF, other UN agencies and partners as part of a broader network of agencies working on evaluation and promoting evaluation of policies and programs. So probably as a follow-up to this webinar, we can also share those resources so then colleagues can explore this further. Thank you.
I could just add to that, before I came to this webinar, I was on another webinar being organized on gender data that can be exploited or extracted from the MIX series, the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey. It's really a treasure trove of excellent data on gender, on lots of other issues. And there's lots of new modules available. And so as part of that MIX endeavor, if you don't already know about it, they have lots of workshops and trainings, and much of this is online, but also at the country level. They tend to have some of these, but of course you have to have, I think, some amount of facility and ease of like knowing how to work with data at that point. But it's a complex survey series. And so those, I think, colleagues like in that Ethiopian association, the ones that might be, at least a few of them who have some experience in actually working with data, that can be an excellent opportunity to engage as well, because the MIX is a source of data for our evaluations. And then just wanted to mention that the courses that Erica talked about, the learning platform is called Agora. And there's tons of really nice courses. Again, I know the gender ones in particular, but we have courses on gender monitoring and evaluation. And I think if you try them, you can learn certain terminology and words that will make you more comfortable in certain meetings and settings and coming with the right kind of terms. So I definitely encourage you to try those courses to become more familiar with some of these concepts, some of the vocabulary, which I think make you then a more attractive candidate also to engage with in increasingly complex endeavors.
Thank you. That's definitely very helpful. And I received another question actually that said, in a world shaped by the power of social media, and this could definitely be more towards our youth advisory group here, do you believe that young people can effectively use these platforms, that these social media platforms, as a tool for creating impactful change, or on the converse side, could it possibly have its limitations? And I think it is such a pertinent question in this sort of environment where social media has become probably one of the main crux of our lives. So if anyone would like to take up this question.
Yeah, I can jump in on this question if that's okay. I think it's so brilliant. And I think I've been thinking about that a lot, the role of social media in relation to activism and youth activism particularly. And I think social media, I would say my answer to the question is kind of like the latter. I think social media is a great tool because you can reach millions of people in a way that you have not done so before. And I think it's a way to see firsthand what is happening in various events around the world and raising awareness on issues that people may not be the most educated about in their daily lives. But I also think that on the flip side, it can be very negative to sort of see such negative content on your feed so much, and then also having people have to share their life stories in such an intimate way on social media that can really impact themselves with what they share. And I'm always concerned about the way that young people, especially younger generations now, are growing up on social media and how that can affect their body image issues and any issues related to that, because I think it's really important to promote safety online. And I think it's now easier to connect with people, but on the flip side, that is also a negative because you can have people who essentially may hurt young people on the internet. And of course, there could be more instances of online gender-based violence, of course. So I think the usage of social media is very interesting because it can be extremely positive in a way that really engages people and builds momentum. But on the flip side, it could also be a negative. Like many things in life, when there's too much of one thing, it could become a negative. But for the most part, I really think that it's important to have mobilization on social issues online because it can really engage audiences and really build empathy and move away from apathy.
Thank you so much. And just to be mindful of the time, we have 5 minutes left, but we want to leave with a quick question that was posed in the question and answer chat box, which could be maybe a 15 seconds for each panelist to just share their insights on. Could you share the most exciting moment you experienced as a youth advisory group member? Just a quick 15 seconds and you can popcorn to each other. Can I start with Anna, if that's okay?
Sure, of course. It's a great question. And I think echoing what Rhonda was saying earlier, I think for me the most exciting part, now that we're still at the beginning and the evaluation is ongoing, and was one of the first meetings we had to discuss the methodology of the evaluation, and we got to meet with the stakeholders engaged in it as well, and to have an open and free conversation, all of us, where we provided our feedback on what we think worked, what we think we could improve there. And I truly felt that it was heard. And then they got back to us with updated inception report, for example, based on the feedback that we had provided. So for me, that was the moment of realization of, this is not just a 1 hour meeting where we say something and then this, I don't know, goes to someone's inbox and is never opened again. It is truly being reflected, and we hope that it has a real impact. So for me, that's been the most significant and exciting moment.
Thank you. Maybe Wijdane?
I actually also, Joanna, for about this. I mean, the most exciting part of being a member of YAG actually was really the first session, because I was kind of shy and I was like wondering who are these evaluation managers who like create huge reports, and it's like really the first session helped me break that glass and getting to know who are these people behind the screen, and they really had that very excellent way to simplify the information and to really gather us together on one simple information. And they really gave us space actually to discuss and to even like make mistakes, and they correct us. I, for example, asked questions about why do we choose certain case studies apart from and not some others, and it was really like these last sessions were really fruitful for me.
Thank you. And quickly, could we have Hani?
Yes, I echo what the other two have said so far. I definitely think the first session was the most exciting moment for me. I got to meet so many new people, those behind the scenes, but also the young people like myself who were participating in the session. It was really nice to see everybody in the same room. I also echo the note about being able to ask questions. I felt that it was a safe space for me to, talk about the evaluation methodology. I had asked some questions, and, usually I can be sometimes shy in these settings, especially if I'm new, but it really allowed me to open up and really dig into what the work was and how I can better contribute. And I really think that was the most exciting part for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Rondell?
Hey, for me, it was definitely the where we went through the evaluation as well. because it really got me to understand the scope of what we were looking at. Because I never was in a space, I guess, of such magnitude. It was always isolated to my locals atmosphere. So I was always in organizations and things like groups in Barbados, but I never really got out into an international stage. So being able to see my peers, all the phenomenal work that they have done, me being included in such a space and being able to give my perspective and my input on this evaluation was really impactful for me. And I hope that I was able to impact it as well.
Thank you. And I know we're already out of time, but if Leah wants to jump in with another 10 seconds.
Absolutely. I'll keep it super short. I think I just echo what everyone says. I think it's been really great to be a part of this. I will say my favorite moment was when Hani presented and she was like the co-chair of the meeting. That was really cool to see her leading the session. So I think that was my favorite moment. But echoing what everyone else has said, I think it's been a really great opportunity and experience.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it on to Barsha to quickly close it.
Wow, that was such an engaging Q&A session. Thank you so much, Kyra, and all the dear panelists and dear participants for asking those questions. So as we come to an end, thank you all for participating in this session, for being with us, for listening to the youth perspectives and taking this up. Hope that this was interesting for you, and hope that you also gained some key takeaways that will be useful to promote meaningful youth engagement in similar evaluations. A huge thanks to our speakers from the youth group, Hani, Rondel, Alia, Anna, Zdain, for sharing their experiences, and colleagues from UNICEF for their contributions. So finally, we would love to hear from you what you think about this session. On the screen, we have the QR code that you can see, that you can scan. And on the chat, Kyra will be posting the link that you can use for the feedback form. It will take only 2 minutes of your valuable time, and it will be very, very valuable for us to hear back from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.